My name is Raquel Ribeiro. I'm a strategy and marketing consultant as well as a university professor, and I'm based in Lisbon, Portugal. This series of 3 webinars is named Reinvent Yourself, Prepare for a New Future Ahead, and is dedicated to helping people like you and us sharing our thoughts about the moment we are facing now, overcoming our anxieties, and identifying opportunities for personal and professional growth in a new context. Being a marketing consultant and a CEO, I have mixed feelings about this whole situation, and you probably feel the same. Discussing plans with other professionals seemed a good option to me for gaining some clarity. I then decided to invite Christina and John to put our knowledge in the fields of leadership, legal, and marketing at the service of managers and entrepreneurs so we can deal with this delicate moment the best we can. The first webinar today will be about adapting personal and professional skills for a new future. And now I'd like you to meet our speakers, Cristina Ferreira da Costa and John Parkerson.
So first of all, thank you, Raquel, so much for having me here today. And well, with a career of more than 20 years in corporate and with the experience of living in 2 different continents, I can say that I have witnessed many people thrive and succeed in the workplace, but I have also witnessed talented and energized people being wasted. So this made me dedicate my life to work with leaders, managers, teams, and helping companies create cultures that can improve the business performance and at the same time make their people feel more alive at work. So I'm a credentialed coach with ICF, and for the last 8 years, I've been focusing my work on leadership coaching, organizational culture, and I bring in tools to work with leaders, to help them, and to help the organizations teams or departments. So I'm happy to be here today to share some of that.
Thank you, Christina. Let's hear from John now.
My name's John Parkerson, and I'm an international business attorney. I've been in international practice for 40 years, but I have a long history in government, and then as in-house international counsel with Delta Airlines for 15 years. And then I've been working in private practice with a law firm, also international business called Haltley Smith. And on the side, I also serve as the Honorary Consul General of Hungary. And academia is an interest. So in all those roles, I've had quite a lot of experience in working in different cultures, different working environments. And it's just a pleasure to be here to be able to share some of that with you all.
Okay, so let's start. And the first question I have for you, and we can start with Christina. Christina, what challenges do you think are being posed to leaders and teams in this new context?
Well, these are new times that we're all living. But with my experience working with my clients now, what I see is that they're facing 3 main challenges. So these challenges have been evolving through these last 6 weeks, 7 weeks. So first they started with the safety, worrying about having health and emotional safety for their employees. Then it started with the communication. So now we have to communicate compliance procedures so that people, really do what they need to be doing in the workplace, or if they're working from home, and keeping them informed of how the business is going, how things are evolving. And now they're starting to look also at adapting the business to this new reality, thinking new ways to move forward. So it has been evolving quickly in all these dimensions. In the early days, it was, in manufacturing, I have clients in that area. What is important? We need to have masks and all the equipment to protect people so that they can come to work. In the technology area, my clients were concerned about having not being hacked. So people working from home, but having all the safety in the networks. So leaders had to anticipate all these things quickly. You know, projects that were there for 3 years in some companies to work remotely, suddenly in 2 weeks they had to make it happen. So, you know, that's the human capacity to really evolve quickly. The communication piece is really important in these times that we are living, and communicating effectively with employees is not easy for everyone. They need, or leaders, and they need to remember that communication goes 2 ways. It's speaking about things, but also listening. You know, listening and addressing people's concerns. You cannot expect people only to be understanding what's happening with the company and the worries of the leader, but also how are they feeling? How are they dealing with all the problems? And at this time, you know, leaders should also show a little bit of their human side. I worked with one of my clients recently in manufacturing, and he wanted to communicate clearly what people needed to do, because he needed them to come in to work. And there were safety measures in place, and we went through that. And at the same time, he needed to give some information, a little bit of bad news, you know, revenue was going down. But he also communicated that, and communicated what was the immediate measures that he was putting into place. So these things need to be addressed by the leaders, and he did this in a calm and confident way, but not being very overly optimistic.
Very well. And John, I know you have been reflecting a lot on how this is affecting personal and professional relationships. What's your viewpoint on this?
Well, you know, very generally speaking, I think that it affects your personal and business relationships only to the extent that you allow it to. I mean, there are so many tools that we have available with technology and other means to continue to communicate. I mean, Christina made a great point about the importance of communication, and at least in my legal profession, I think that, you know, staying relevant is just so important, and you stay relevant by communicating, not just with your fellow colleagues in the firm, but by providing your clients and others with updates, whether it's by blogs or emails or phone calls to them. And so I think that staying relevant involves those communication skills, and which are so important for maintaining those personal relationships. So I just say take advantage of those tools that you have in order to stay relevant, to be able to continue to compete in the marketplace, to maintain that sense of optimism and being motivated. That's so important, I think, for having a positive attitude.
Okay, so don't hide behind the screens, but use it to your own good and to connect with people. That would be the advice. Christina, I mean, you have heard a lot about your clients on how this is changing working and business environments. What's on your opinion on this? How will this situation change working and business environments?
Yeah, so we're seeing that although there's many businesses in trouble right now, we all know that, but there are also lots of businesses that continue to operate, and people are working from home, and they're not traveling, and things are happening. So there are 3 important results that I think is coming from this. On one hand, companies are seeing that they can reduce costs. They don't probably have to have so many buildings, so many floors of where they have their people in there, and spending money in utilities, paper, all those things. Training, when they make people travel back and forth for training or for onboarding new employees. All these things, they see that now it's possible to be doing from the safety of our homes. And on the other side, people, they see that they are saving time. They can they're not in traffic. They don't have to do a long commute every day. And that time can be spent with their families, with themselves, using that time in a different way. It's new. And the other thing is the planet wins as well. So reducing all kinds of pollution right now. And if you see, there are so many people happy to not going to the office right now. And there are other people that can't wait to go back. So, there's a balance here, and companies are looking at this and putting it all together to see, okay, what can we offer in the future? Maybe working from home is a possibility. Doing shifts so we don't have to have so many buildings. And a new culture is emerging from this. It's an opportunity, really, for some change in many companies. And for this to be sustainable in this new world, there's a need for developing people, developing managers. They need to let go of control and learn how to, manage their people in a different way. The micromanaging is not going to be sustainable anymore. There have to have systems of reports so that you can manage your people by results and not as much by looking at what they're doing every moment. It's even more productive and more effective. Why does it matter if your employee is doing something at 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock and he's there? Maybe he went to get his kids to school, but he will work whatever it is that he needs to do by 6, and at the same time he's giving results, and at the same and in the timely manner delivering. So there's a lot of thinking around this. One thing that is really important moving forward in this kind of ecosystem is to the performance reviews. If you're evaluating your people, you can't be doing that anymore like once a year or twice a year like so many companies are doing. The communication in this performance review and telling people how they're doing has to be more frequent. That has to be incorporated in the way managers will be working and managing these expectations. For example, I collaborate with a company here in the US that has people all over the world, and they are top in their industry. They work from home. They work remotely for 11 years, and it works perfectly. They sometimes have to go to the customer, but the customers are used to this. So people are delivering with excellence. They are creating groups that they develop things. But one thing that is amazing is that the CEO and the chairman of this company every month get everyone together on a Zoom call, and they give them information about what is happening, how the business is moving, not only now in this situation, they always do that consistently. And how they start their meetings is just so amazing, because they start with a very personal touch, a very human touch, and appreciating, the work that people have been doing in specific clients, and giving examples of what was really amazing and good, and the ideas they brought in. And what we see there is a culture of accountability and a culture and appreciation. And once the CEO and the chairman have this positioning, what you see is everyone reacts that way with each other. So people really take good care of their clients, and they take good care of each other. I think it's a really good example of how to work remotely.
And John, you were talking about staying relevant. How can we take advantage of technology for doing that?
Well, some of it's low technology and some of it's high technology, but I think the most obvious is just taking full advantage of social media to start with. Most of our firms have blogs, they have websites, they have opportunities for you to communicate to the clients and to potential clients as well. And I think whether you're using, Skype, Zoom, WebEx, Facebook, and I even learned last week about another method of communication through my class at Georgia Tech, Blue Jeans, which I'd never used before. And the students seem to enjoy using that as a means to communicate. So I think staying relevant is keeping your skills, communicating, showing your competence on every opportunity that you have. And that's basically it, making use of those tools.
Okay, and Christina, I'm sure every leader wants to know which skills do you find more important for dealing with uncertainty? Which is the profile that we should develop, work on to make things work better?
Yeah, in my view, the three essential skills that a leader and all of us, basically, because we're all leaders if we think about it. I'm leader of my own life, I'm leader of my own business, I'm leader of a team, all those things. But the main thing for now is acceptance. There are things that are out of our control. And, in our lives, people are struggling right now with specific things, with this economic crisis, not only health crisis, now it's all a whole economic situation. But once you accept that there are things that are out of our control and you focus your mind in what can I do? Okay, because the more you worry, the more you focus on the problem, the less resources of your brain you can use to creative solutions. And you get into that mode of survival, and that doesn't use the workshop of your brain. So we really need to open up, say, okay, I can't control this, what can I do? And that brings in the creative solutions. So that's one thing. The other one is, and now there's a little bit more time to do that, reflection. Take some time alone. If you're a leader, if you're changing careers, if you're thinking of pivoting your business because things are not working and you don't, just take some time alone. Reflect on where you are, where you want to be, what are your most important values, most important goals that you want to achieve, and really use that time to contemplate. And you'll say, oh, right, so now we don't do anything, we just stop. Yeah, sometimes we have to stop. We have to stop because we're influenced for so many things. And we, as humans, have a guiding system that we can utilize, and we should utilize, and stop that chatting of the mind. So meditation, everybody hears about meditation. Oh yeah, that's not for me. Why not? Have you given it a try? Because what we want to do is reduce the activity of the brain. The activity as the brain heats up, and then you're thinking in circles. So you need to bring in, again, new other resources that you have, ideas, things. So meditating is a good practice to do right now. And it can go slowly.
1 more minute for you.
Adaptability is another thing. So if you need to see, okay, where am I? What skills do I need to develop? For example, people in technology, they need to develop skills on the cloud because everything's moving to the cloud, right? So that's a possibility. Marketing, like in your business, digital marketing is going to be crucial. So skills to adapt to these new situations.
And John, last question for today is, I'm sure you are already preparing for the next months and years to come. How can we do the same? How can we better prepare for the times coming?
Well, I think by listening carefully to what, and absorbing the challenges that we've faced in the last few months have taught us a number of lessons, whether it's about how to be more efficient, how to use our technology, but even how to be more sympathetic. And we, if we practice the lessons we've learned in the future, in this changed environment. It'll never be the same as it was, and maybe that's a positive in many ways. I think that this is an opportunity. You know, our firm, for example, has a program where on the weekends, employees can send in photos of what it looks like to work in isolation. That helps to show the sympathy that we can project even going forward. Tonight at 5 p.m., we're having a virtual concert in our firm. We have several musicians that want to perform, and that's going to be interesting. It brings us together. It allows us to express our kinder sides to each other in a very, cutthroat at times environment. So I think those are the lessons that we've learned from this experience, and it'll be good if we can project those forward.
Let's hope for the best. Thank you, Christina and John. Just to sum up, well, what have we gathered from today's meeting? The importance of staying relevant, communicate to show you're still there and that you still care. That's vital to compete effectively, not to be forgotten. Don't forget to speak to your team and to speak to your leader about what's going on. Don't keep it to yourself. And in order to do that, try to improve your remote experience. Keep it as human as possible. Show your face, don't hide behind the screen. Look out for nonverbal communication. That's a particular aspect of challenges we are facing with technology. We don't have to give away every part of our traditional style of communication just because we are using technology. I mean, we can still see each other and communicate in a more close way. And also, you might want to rethink your managerial style and don't freak out about control. Just develop systems of report instead. If you are part of the team, perhaps you want to, make the first move to report to your leader. If he doesn't ask you to directly, then do it on your own. That will be much appreciated for sure. And also, don't forget to be sympathetic. Show appreciation and consideration to your teams, to your colleagues, to your partners, to your clients, and stay motivated because we shall overcome all this. Okay, so that's all for our session, and thank you very much. I'd like to use our remaining time to get your insight about some questions from our participants. And who would like to pose the first question today?
I see that, if I can say something, I see somebody that has the same last name as mine who is asking a question, and I wish you could continue.
So, Christina, I thought it was a really great point you made about the micromanaging and the need to have something in place to kind of measure the performance of employees so that management is not looking over your shoulder and having to micromanage if more people are going to be working from home. And so I was just going to mention the organization that I work for. We have something in place like that in the form of a weekly report. But my question actually was, it sounds like you were kind of gearing toward this is actually showing organizations the viability and even how they can save money by having their employees work from home. So my question was just, assuming or when the whole COVID-19 crisis is over, do you really estimate that many organizations will start to shift towards a work from home format now that they've seen the viability of it due to the crisis?
I'm expecting that to happen. I think there's going to be a mix. What I'm thinking is that companies are seeing how much they can save with this. People are seeing how good it is to be closer and not having to go. The other thing is that this coronavirus, when is it going to be totally out of our lives? People, I was reading an article just this morning where people, okay, now we can go to work with the social distance, this and that, but how I'm going to get to work if I don't have a car, or if I use transportation? New York, how are they going to do that? Are they going to go in the bus? Are they going to go in the subway? So, I don't believe this is going to be this will take time. This will take time, to be honest. But I do see an opportunity for this, and people, we'll see. We'll see. But I think it's a good opportunity.
I agree. I agree. I think also the other question I would have then is, there are people who have been in management so long and maybe aren't as open to change. How do you go about retraining managers, to kind of operate under the new format and be able to adapt to that as well? Like, what role will education come? And
yeah, so that's one of the big topics there, is that leaders and managers need to do a redesign their way. And some are already like that, some are already, but if you come in with a different approach to management, more like coaching your people instead of telling them what to do, there's many advantages, because people, once you have more of a coaching approach, you are encouraging them to speak, encouraging them to give ideas, encouraging them to share. Because look at this, managers know a lot about the business, but the people that are working in the specific departments, in the specific roles, they know better. They know exactly what to do, what can be improved, and all that knowledge is being wasted because they don't ask the questions. So if become more of a coach approach, then you are extracting from people. And what happens is that if for example, Justin, somebody asks you, okay, we have this situation, Justin, what would you do? Your manager asks you that, or you as a manager ask that to other people, and they give their idea. Then you come in and say, okay, I like that. Please go ahead. How long do you need to make that happen? And you say, well, I need 2 weeks. Okay. And your manager starts only monitoring a little bit. Hey, Justin, how are you doing? Did you need anything from me? As that idea was great. Your project, how's it going? And that, because if you do that, people are, it's their baby, it's their idea. You don't need to micromanage them. They want to make it happen. Make sense?
Yes, ma'am. That's a great point. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Any more questions?
So I'm going to ask you a question. What are some methods that you can use in order to stay relevant in these times?
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit already, I think, but I believe just making full use of all the tools that you have for communicating, staying up to date on your profession. If you're an accountant, stay up on the latest accounting methods and project that. Show your clients or potential clients that you're still out there, that you're active. You haven't gone to sleep or gone on a vacation within the confines of your residence for that time. That that you're thinking, and I do that by blogs, by emails, picking up the phone now and then, and calling my clients and say, how are you doing? How's your family? How can I help you? Is there anything we can do during this time to work together? And that's the way I think you stay relevant. Unfortunately, during this time, you don't have the networking opportunities that you normally have. So you have to replace it with something else that's going to be effective.
I'd like to add something to that, if possible.
Sure.
So even in my own business, in my own practice, I am getting further certifications right now, things that I always wanted to work on, to master. I'm doing that right now. I mean, it's super important. It's super important to keep relevant, to keep learning. This is new for all of us, though. There's a great opportunity right now for us to show up. and with something fresh and new. And I did another thing that I did was at the beginning when this all started, I contacted my main clients, the ones that I have a really, really strong relationship with, which I like to build that kind of relationship, very close to the clients. And I remember putting myself at their service. Look, if you need an hour to talk, no, free of charge. All these things build relationships. And even I was on a conference before all this started, and when this started, and it was a lady speaking something that is so true. She said, the kind of the relationships you build with your clients or with your suppliers, not only your clients, your suppliers, was so important, because in a moment where there's scarcity of things, if you have a good relationship with your supplier, he will, favor you in something that you need. So that's a culture, if you approach business in this way, where you're good to your customers, you're good to your clients, you're good to your people, I mean, how can you not succeed?
Okay, we have a question from Pedro Marques. He says, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for your insights, Christine and John. As for my question, how can employees make management aware of the benefits of teleworking? I feel that there is some suspicion regarding this format in Portugal. Maybe John would like to start, and then Christine will join.
Well, I think the employees need to take advantage of whatever opportunities that they have to communicate with their employers. The employees have a lot to offer, and if the employer is not listening, then they're not gaining that advantage that they can have. Whether it's through weekly conference calls, team meetings, however, take advantage of the opportunity to communicate.
So the other day I was working with a client, and he's from Australia. I'm coaching him at the moment, and he has that struggle you were saying about Portugal, but he has that situation in other things about having people in the US. His boss is in the US, he has another boss in the US, so there's different cultural differences in the way they do things in Australia and the way they do things in the US. So this is all around the world. I mean, it's not only Portugal, but actually I was contacted from Portugal from a business, real estate, and they wanted to put their managers, to train their managers more to become coaches. So that's, Pedro, that's a possibility. Things are changing, and the more global we become, the more that change happens. So I think this is a moment of opportunities.
Pedro, I hope, okay, he says, thank you. So you have answered to his question. Anyone would like to join at the question? Anyone else?
What are some positive ways that your business environment might actually profit as a consequence of COVID-19?
Can I start that one just very quickly? Working in a large office tower with about 300 attorneys, I know that our office space expenses are quite high, and I think Christina alluded to this a little bit earlier, that we might adopt some sort of combination of working a certain number of days from home and working a certain number of days in the office, or even office sharing, and I think that reduces that kind of cost. But I also know that we're becoming paperless, essentially. And I'm in a profession that's built on stacks of papers. Thank goodness those are beginning to vanish, and we're learning the new skill of how to work in that type of environment. Think about the costs that's saving from printer ink to the paper itself, to pencils and pens. Less travel. Unfortunately, travel is one of the things that I enjoy most about working in international business. That's gone for the most part, and we have to be able to substitute. But at the same time, while we're talking face to face in this manner, we're saving thousands of dollars in what would be travel expenses. Christina?
Yeah, I have a client in Portugal that we were, before this all started, we were organizing some work. And then suddenly, everything stopped. But and they have people in different countries and different places, and but I believe they are reassessing everything. And instead of meeting with everyone in Portugal and Lisbon, every quarter, I believe they are reassessing this and maybe doing it online and facilitating. I facilitate teamwork and finding the purpose in teams. These kind of things are important to happen because you need people to be engaged. And if they're on their, alone at home, some of them like that, others may not like it that much, but you need to build that strength of all of them and find what is it that we are doing, who are we, these kind of things. This deep stuff starts getting a different meaning, and more important meaning right now. So there's opportunities.
A quick quip. Yesterday I was on the telephone for a long time with one of my clients going through a pretty complicated contract. At the end of that session, he said to me, "Well, it's time for happy hour." And I said, "It's time for happy hour somewhere." And before we hung up, we each went to the kitchen, grabbed a glass of wine, and had a little chat. And so there are some ways that you can still get some enjoyment out of that communication, even though it's remote. Christine had a question, if I'm not mistaken.
Christine Trevidic is asking, I'm very skeptic about if this situation will change the way companies communicate with their employees. Does anyone has an example to share concerning this topic? I have the feeling that organization culture is the key point, maybe the key driver to companies change for better. Christina, would you like to start answering, please?
Sure. Well, I gave an example of a company that I partner with, that they have been working remotely for 11 years, and they're very successful, top in their industry, and they're even doing workshops now of how to work remotely. But yes, you are right. Cultures need to change. But you're skeptical. Okay, fine. I agree that it might be a little difficult. The other day I was talking to a friend of mine in a big consulting company, and I was saying, so aren't you, getting a little bit more acquainted with your colleagues, and don't you see their pets? Don't you see, how is it working? And she was saying, no, in our area, no, it's very cold environment. But Christine, I would say that there are companies that will take a little longer to get there, but to be sustainable in this new environment, they will hit it. And when the ones that will change first will adapt quick, and they will, be not in the survival mode, they will improve. The ones that take longer, it will hit harder. I mean,
and the others will follow.
Yes.
By
exactly.
example. Maybe by example.
So for example, if one department has a specific manager that really sees the whole picture and has some is allowed to, start bringing in, and I see managers that I work with when I'm coaching them, some of them from the UK, there's one that the other day was saying, we got all fancy clothes and we did our meeting in a thematic way. I mean, they're finding ways for what? For people to be engaged, for people to deliver the work with excellence and in time. You have to be creative. If you're focusing on the past,
you're lost. Okay, agree. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
totally agree. Absolutely. Thank you, John, also.
I do too. I agree with what Christina said, of course. And some companies have more informal cultures than others to begin with, and that's going to be, some are going to be more difficult to change than others. That's just a given. I'm fortunate that I work in a company where the culture is we're all on first name basis, and this has been a chance for me to see what what other people's dogs and children and all of that look like when they send in their emails, their attachments of what's happening in their home in isolation.
And about culture, I just want to say this. You know, I work with culture and I bring in tools to use data. So, because this culture is something intangible, and many, you know, leaders and business owners, they're like, what is that? That's a fluffy thing. It is not. And I believe that this virus, whatever it is that is hitting us, is really making it, creating the space for us to rethink. What are we doing to us? People are stressed all the time, you know. The managers, and you know this, they're back to back with meetings. And they come home exhausted because there's so much information. Their cognitive there's a cognitive overwhelming for these people. And I mean, how long can you continue this way? How can you, as a manager or a leader, how can you be in perfect sync with what you need to do, which is managing people and managing resources, if you are continuously overwhelmed? How can you be a good manager, a good leader? So, you know, this has to shift. There's opportunity to create a different culture in organizations, and that can be measured. You know, with tools, we can measure, we go in, measure the department, the culture in that department, and then slowly, or in a role, a specific role, where's the, you know, the turnover? Why do people leave all the time, the companies? They don't leave because of the work. They leave because they can't stand their manager, or they can't stand, you know, that has to shift.
They leave because they are not engaged most of the times.
Yeah, absolutely.
With their managers, with the company itself, with the products and the services the company sells. And these younger generations, you can see that very clearly. They change for 50 euros at the end of the month to the company next door. So this is, I think this is nature giving us the opportunity to change when we were asking ourselves to change and we couldn't change. We didn't know how to change. And now we have the tools to do it.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. I agree with you. That's really good point. You know, I wrote a book when I moved to the US. I had to build a new business. I'm from Portugal. Okay, so different culture, different way of doing things. So I changed careers, I changed countries, and I changed cultures all at the same time. It was a shock for me. And Justin, you are in Costa Rica, right?
Dominican Republic.
Dominican Republic. You are American, so you did that change too, that shift. And you know, I at a certain point, I'm like, all right, so what now? What? And I had to start from scratch, you know. And I decided, and then you get creative. You know, I could have just said, oh my God, how am I going to do this? Because nobody was recognizing my value, like immediately the market. No, America is, you know, it's a tough market. So suddenly I start interviewing lots of foreign companies in the area, in the Atlanta area, and most of them spoke about that you just said. You know, people are not engaged. They leave the company for $1 more per hour, and these are a lot of manufacturing companies. But there was companies that I was interviewing, and the manager, the general manager, was saying, nope, I've been with these people for 20 years, 10 years. And I'm like, why? Don't they just leave you? No, we have a culture where we listen to them, where we engage them. Everybody has daily meetings with everybody in the plant, and we want to hear, hey, how can we do this better? What's good? What's bad? You know, they're engaged in the decisions. They're part of things. So I think there's hope. There's hope for us, and this is the time.
Always being optimistic, always.
Yeah.
Let's go forward.
I have more questions from Marcus. Marcus is asking, Christina, you mentioned team leaders should allow people to make mistakes and not be afraid to be punished. To what extent is that doable? And also, another question for you. You mentioned the diagnostic to the culture in your company. What information can you get from there? And to John, why is competing effectively important in your business? What are the dangers if you don't? Okay, Christina, perhaps you want to start by answering
Sure.
why leaders should allow people to make mistakes.
Yeah. So again, like Christine was mentioning, this is all important because in a team, for example, or in a department, if when you're having these meetings, if the manager is always or criticizing you, and you say something and he says, no, that's not going to work, or how many times are you going to talk again? You're not, right? So creating this psychological safety is very important so that people can feel that if I make a mistake, I'm not going to be if I make a mistake at work, if I make a mistake, I'm not going to be immediately punished. You're not going to make mistakes all the time. You have to learn, but the ability to allow a mistake is very important. And the other thing is allow people to speak, to voice, to say something. And encourage them. So this is the kind of cultures that we need in departments and teams and organizations too. Because look at this. If you are always saying what to do, right? And so you're the one that knows everything. You're the one that knows that and you don't want to even hear other ideas. What are you building? You're building an army of people that are just, yes, okay, yes, I'll do that, yeah. And you're not multiplying your resources. You're really narrowing them to you. You're the only one that has any ability to do anything. So, we're not in a world like that anymore. People will leave if they're not engaged, if they're not interesting and interested. And the other was something about the diagnosis of the culture.
Yes.
Yeah. So, we bring in data, and like I said before, culture is a vague thing, but we bring in data to relate that to productivity and to relate that to profit. So there are tools out there to measure culture. And also you can see it's very interactive and very easy to understand. And you can see how there's a disconnect so many times between what leaders think is the right thing and what they care about and how they behave. And that makes a culture complicated, and toxic when there's no need. So when I'm working with my clients and coaching, I see that so many times, managers and leaders that are really good people that have good intentions, but then they are just behaving in a way that they are not communicating those good intentions and those good values, and that they care. They just get overwhelmed and too stressed to be looking at what they're doing. I don't know if that helps.
And, John, why is competing effectively important in your business? What are the dangers if you don't? Marcus asks.
All of us have competition in one way or the other, whether it's individuals who are competing with us or other companies or other agencies even competing with us. And I think, you don't want to be among the forgotten when we emerge from this crisis. So if you don't compete, if you don't stay competitive and visible, if you don't remain on the radar, then someone else will grab your share that you've forfeited during this time that you were not competing. You have to stay at the forefront of your profession, and you have to demonstrate that continuously to your clients and prospective clients. And I don't care what kind of profession you're in, it's going to be the same across the board. Everybody's looking for their own share of the market. And if you don't stay competitive and you're not seen as being competitive, then you lose that share.
All right, and now we have Maria Neves. She asks, without a doubt that we're changing, the proof of this is the meeting in which we're participating, talking about subjects that we probably wouldn't talk about. Question is, companies and employees will develop knowledge and practices and they will have to share with the customers, but how much new customers will trust? Christina, that could be for you.
How much new customers?
Will customers trust you when you use these new practices of communication and work? That's what I understand from Maria's question.
I would say that, and I'll try to, I will say that a company that takes good care of their employees is indirectly taking good care of the customer, because between the company or the product or the service and the customer is a person. So be very aware of how you're treating your people, and the customer will trust, because so it's like a wave. The employee trusts the company trusts the employee, the customer trusts the employee, and then trusts the product or the service of the company. And this is, there's books about this, you know, companies that are the best places to work for, you know. Why does a company want to be that? You know, why? They really take good care of their employees, and they're making more money and being more profitable than the S&P 500. There's data supporting that. Another, firms of endearment. Firms of endearment are companies that have cultures that not only care about the employees, but they care about the suppliers, the customers, the community, the official organizations. So they are in an ecosystem, and they want, you know, to make good deals, but they want everybody to win. These companies are being more profitable, again, than the S&P 500. I mean, it will take time. We are better than we were 20 years ago. There's more organizations looking at this, and yes, I mean, I as a customer, I want to know. It's not sometimes only price. Why is that? What is that company doing? You know, how are they producing? How are they? And I will look at those things to see if that's the company I want to work with, or that I want to buy any product from. I hope I responded.
Do we have more questions? We have 6 minutes left.
I need to say that I think this is just delicious, that the way that we can be all together here talking, people that don't know each other. I mean, this is what it's all about, isn't it? If we can do this in our own teams, in our own places, in our work, I mean, I think that is building trust.
Yeah, I'm happy too.
If we were in a traditional conference, we wouldn't be talking with each other. Maybe
No,
we were listening to Christina and John and say nothing. So this is delicious.
That's true.
That's a great
Can I
point.
add something there? Because I think in many ways we're communicating more within our companies than we did previously. I mean, I think management didn't necessarily feel that constant need to be in touch and to gauge the pulse of the employees as much as they do today. I mean, it's in these times, it's important to stay in contact with your team and to know that you care, that you're part, you want to keep the team together and work with your employees. And we didn't have firm-wide weekly calls or meetings before this crisis, so now I actually know, people in our New Jersey office, the people in our, Florida office, whom I didn't know before because of this. So there are opportunities there, and I think about the trust that, going back to that topic for a moment that Christina was touching on. You build that with your clients gradually, as she said. I think about cultivation a lot, and I don't want to emerge from this crisis without them. I don't want to have to start over. I love it when one of my clients it gets me on WhatsApp and he's walking around in his backyard showing me his barbecue pit on the outskirts of Prague. You know, then you feel like you've connected and you really are going to retain that client in the future.
Absolutely. I one of my clients from Portugal, one of my dear clients, because I kind of, when I speak these things, I always say, do I have a client that I don't really care about? I don't. We've kind of developed something that is sustainable in time. So he contacted me at the beginning and said, you know what, I got the coronavirus. I'm sick. And, you know, I was, you know, on the call with him and giving him some suggestions for some exercises to keep his immunity system high. I mean, how do you do that to clients? Isn't that just awesome? So this is the way I decided really to live my life. If I can help companies and really get into that deep stuff and have that deep relationship, that's the way I want to work, and that's the way I want to live my life with dear friends like you all.
Okay, so if we have no more questions, then I'd like to use this opportunity to thank everyone, especially Christina and John. Those were very useful contributions, very inspiring, give me something to think of. Please remember that our second session will take place on April the 30th, same time as today. You'll be able to learn more about inspiring leadership, teams, and people interaction. I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoyed it. And I expect you again on Thursday. See you then, and all the best. Stay safe.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah.